Hello everyone, this is Torin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular ladder battle, I will be playing the Vampire accounts, and I'm going to be facing off against the Greenskins. So definitely a matchup I don't play terribly often, so definitely looking forward to getting to know it a little bit. So in my front line, I have Zombies. Zombies are a very, very good fodder unit against the Greenskins, and in this initial matchup, when I first engaged my front line, a lot of Greenskin players are just people in general will immediately use their buffs. They'll use Wa, they'll use Fist of Gork, all of those type of things. And the fact that those zombies cover such a wide spread is they're gonna really absorb that well. So I'm a big fan of the zombies sitting in the front line. And personally, I don't think Greenskins have good enough missile infantry to warrant the skeletons and those type of units. So that's my choice as far as fodder goes. In my secondary line, I have the Stearnsmen, the Regiments of Renown. They're very, very strong. The regeneration effect on them is quite good, and also their combat stats are quite a bit higher than the standard Graveguard, with 36 on this group, and you guys look, and they have 47 melee defense here, as well as additional stats in other areas. So these are a very good choice to engage on the Biggins. Biggins do not have armor piercing. You do not want these guys on Black Orcs, so make sure you can get these Stearnsmen, or Graveguard for that matter, standard Graveguard, just on the Biggins. They're going to do quite well there. In the back, you also always need to bring some armor piercing because Black Orcs are fairly common on the Greenskin roster, so having something that can get through their 110 armor is pretty important. So I have a group of Graveguard here, and then I also have a group of Cryptors here, so I'm just going to kind of hunt down their nearest group of Black Orcs and go after those guys, so hopefully it'll pay off for me. So it works pretty well also because of the poisoning effect, and it can really, really turn the tide of that battle. In terms of leadership, I have the Strigoi Ghoul King up here who's just rocking it on his Terrorgeist, and he just brings so much to the table with having wonderful spells at his disposal. He can summon Cryptors, he has Gaze of Nagash, he has Invocation of Nehek, and if you want, he has several good options in Lore of Death as well. In conjunction with that, he has, I don't know if I already mentioned it, but he does have anti-large, so against things like Arachnarok Spiders or enemy lords who are on mounts, he's going to be very, very good. And when you do put him on the Terrorgeist, one of the Strigoi Ghoul King's weaknesses is the fact that he has very low armor, but on the Terrorgeist, he has 80 armor, which is not bad. Then I also have Vargeist and Fellbats just to dive missile infantry, shut down artillery, that type of thing. So that's usually what I like to use those for. Then in the back, I also have a Banshee as well as a White King mixed in here somewhere. So these guys are very good at hunting down enemy casters. And at the end of the day, they'll do pretty decent against the, the Ragnarok Spider over there. Because believe it or not, this Banshee does have armor piercing. So very cool there. And then I also have the Blood Knights as well as the Dire Pack. So this is my anti-large, anti-cavalry group here, and they will win most matchups together. So big fan of these guys. As far as my opponent's army goes, it looks like he has a front line of Biggins. So Orc Biggins are pretty good. They cut through fodder rather quickly because, again, the zombies are not the most resilient troops with, 15 armor. So the Biggins will make quick work of them and will dispose of the fodder rather fast. And they do have anti-large. I didn't know that for the longest time, that the Bigger and Arder was an anti-large thing. I just didn't know what it was, and definitely miscasted that a few times. So my apologies for that, guys. But they are going to do pretty well against Cryptors and things like that. So that's why I didn't overload on Cryptors. I just decided to bring some standard Graveguard with great weapons. And then he also has Black Orcs here. So I need to make sure to get my armor-piercing troops on these guys ASAP. And the Strigoi Ghoul King is going to be very good for dealing with those as well with his Cryptor summoning ability. So also, you don't want these guys on your crypt, on my Graveguard, the ones without great weapons, because they'll make quick work of them. So my opponent definitely has a pretty good army composition. In the wings, he has Orc Boarboy Biggins, who do have anti-large and armor piercing, which is great against the Blood Knights. Regardless, Blood Knights are still a superior cavalry, but they'll do pretty well for their buck. And then he also has another group over there. In terms of leadership, he has, it looks like, an Orc War Boss with a potion. He has a Goblin Big Boss, which is a good choice, but no potion, surprisingly. Then he also has an Orc Shaman with the Foot of Gork, which is going to be very good if he can land it on my Blood Knights. And then he also has Ere We Go and Fists of Gork, so and then also a Ragnarok Spider and a Goblin Rock Lobber. So my opponent has a pretty solid army composition, so should be fun, guys. Let's see how it goes, and hope you enjoy this one. So when you're in a matchup like this, if you realize that your opponent doesn't have any, missile infantry, I would advise just flying your aerial units right over them and just posturing however you like, because they can't do anything about it, and you can get your aerial units in position to dive wherever you want them to when the rest of your troops get there. So in this situation, I'm just kind of flying overhead, trying to feel them out for vulnerabilities. So for example, if he had ran a little bit more out this way, I would have dive bombed him with all three of these units, done a decent amount of damage, or perhaps I would have summoned some Crypt Ghouls, tied them up, and then dive. So right now, I did notice a little bit of an opening here with this Goblin Rock Lobber. And these Fellbats, like I was telling you guys earlier, are just so cost effective. I mean, they essentially just shut down this Goblin Rock Lobber, and, I got pretty good results out of that, because now I still have a lot of distance to march, guys, and I'm not going to be taking any rock lobber fire for the rest of this battle, simply for a group of Fellbats. So I would say that's a pretty good investment. It also forced all his units into a tight cluster here, so definitely a good investment. Fellbats are just so solid, and you know, in a lot of matchups, I'll even bring 2. They can really tie down missile infantry. So at the same time, I'm positioning my Blood Knights out around the wings here. I was just trying to get him to bait him out, and hopefully he would come with these Orc Boy Biggins, so then I could jump them with these units and then get that huge charge bonus with the Blood Knights. So it looks like my opponent may oblige me. It looks like he's at least lining up and getting prepared here, and this is definitely an advantageous matchup because the Dire Pack will do very, very good at initiating the combat, where these troops can then follow up. So we will see how it goes, guys. But right now, my opponent didn't come out of his shell, so I was a little hesitant. I didn't want to come too close because these black orcs could have peeled over and helped out, and I also didn't want the Arachnarok Spider and other units to come back there. So I'm kind of just getting ready and waiting for the combat to begin. So in the front line, the zombies are going ahead and engaging, which is good. They're just going to, take this initial shock here, which is, ideal for me. And at the same time, my opponent he's definitely being very evasive with these cavalry, not wanting to engage them, but finally he does decide to pull them out, and I summoned some Cryptors here, and I wanted them to tie down these black orcs. So this is definitely good. They have armor piercing, and the armor piercing of the black orcs won't be that pertinent considering Cryptors only have 30 armor, so a good matchup for me there. And I do get this engagement here and get a pretty decent charge. And now I have my Vargeists, I have my Blood Knights, and also the Dire Pack in here. So these guys are going to have a very, very rough time. And also the Strigoi Ghoul King is in here, and he is just an absolute terror. And he is now fighting this Orc Shaman. And you can see the Orc Shaman is already shaken, guys. And he is in, almost perfect health. And look at that damage he's doing. Strigoi Ghoul King is just such a menace. So in the back, I basically shattered that cavalry line here, and I decided to start cycling these units because I didn't want to let these Black Orcs and other troops kind of envelop them, so I started just cycling my cavalry. In the meantime, everything's going, pretty standard in the front line. The zombie fodder line is getting cut through, and now my regular Graveguard are engaging here. This was definitely a little bit of a blunder on my part. I sent the Graveguard with great weapons against these troops. I was trying to get them around to the Black Orcs, but my opponent did a very good job of tying them down. Also, at the same time, I do have this Banshee as well as the White King engaging the Spider. And they're doing pretty good, although it looks like the Banshee's pathing got a little messed up there, so hopefully she'll re-engage here soon. In the back, I start to pull my troops out because these Black Orcs, got a little bit of a decent wrap on my guys here, and I did not want that. You always want to optimize these types of really expensive troops like Blood Knights and make sure they're fighting their counters. So I'm just chasing down all his cavalry here, and my opponent does use a Foot of Gork, and you can see the health of my guys just tank right there. Those Blood Knights took a beating, so very, very well played on my opponent's part. So I immediately just retreat and start to, chase these units down back here, and then in a moment here, I believe I used the Invocation of the Hecker. I already did, actually, so hopefully that'll help counteract some of that damage I took. So right now, just making a really, really big effort to chase down these Orc Boy Biggins and make sure they do not come back. Because they are, they're a pretty strong unit and can definitely make a difference in this battle. As far as the backline goes, these Cryptors that I was able to summon are just doing great work. They're cutting through this group of Black Orcs like it's like no one's business here, and it's a very, very good situation for me. Again, just another, pointing towards the Strigoi Ghoul King strength, so very, very solid there. In here, my opponent is doing quite well. These Biggins are getting through these Graveguards, surprisingly, but I would say it's actually a fairly even matchup at the end of the day. And the Sternsman here just being very, very sturdy, just doing a great job. And finally, my Banshee as well as my White King are getting through this Arachnarok Spider. And unfortunately for my opponent, the Blood Knights and other troops are also coming in, and they're going to get the anti-large bonus on this Arachnarok Spider, so that should definitely be good for me. At the same time, I also use an Invocation of the Heck. Whenever anything's really cluttered like this, if you can, that's the most cost-effective time to use the Invocation, and it'll just pay such dividends. So right now, it's kind of just become, a kind of a mishmash battle in here. Things are pretty wild, but my opponent's units are starting to crumble a little bit. He still has some Biggins who are doing pretty well against these Cryptors. They do have that anti-large, so the Cryptors, I kind of started to retreat them, and I didn't want them to get surrounded here. And thankfully, a lot of his troops are getting tied up on this Banshee, which is not what you want. That Ethereal Banshee is going to take forever to kill. That's something I've noticed about Greenskins is they do take, not take a while, but they do have some issues in dealing with Ethereal units. So I think the Banshee is a good include. Something I missed in this battle is I usually bring a Mortis Engine. I think it's a great investment. I just absolutely forgot to bring it, so something to look at in the future. So as the battle winds to a close here, the Strigoi Ghoul King lands down and does pretty good at just finishing, enemy leadership. He has armor piercing, anti-large. He applies poison. He can pretty much deal with, any threat in that way. So definitely a good game there. I would say a lot of the victory, or the way I won was by taking out the enemy's cavalry. We both invested fairly heavily in the Blood Knights and the Dire Pack, and then I would also consider the Vargeist an investment in that particular battle. And you can see these Orc Boarboy Biggins just got absolutely shut down. They get tied up by the Dire Pack, and then the Blood Knights come in and just wreak havoc. So, and also having the Strigoi Ghoul King and those other aerial units is very valuable in that, because they can maneuver around the battlefield very quickly and can tie up enemy boys over here and just pay great dues. So the zombies, they did their job. Didn't get a lot of kills, which is totally normal, but my Grave Guard did pretty good at holding the front line. This group of Cryptors also did good. They were able to get on a group of Black Orcs and do great work. And you guys can see the poison effect of those of the Cryptors on the Black Orcs really, really weakens them. And you can see only, 1 kill here and 6 kills here. That is definitely not cost effective. So my opponent did do a good job with his Orc War Boss and was perpetually buffing these Biggins in the front line, though. You can see, I mean, a lot of these are zombie kills, but a lot of them are also Graveguard kills. He absolutely cleaned up my Graveguard with great weapons and did pretty well in the rest of the front line. But I think the determining factor came down to that cavalry battle in the back. So really good game to my opponent, Party Elite. It was a lot of fun. I look forward to seeing you again on Ladder. And I just want to thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed that game and have an excellent night. Take care.